Welcome to our talk. I'm Jessica. This is my colleague and co-presenter, Artur.
Hi.
We work for a software company called AIMS that makes a very fancy math modeling software. We're very small, well, fairly small, with about 50 employees and about 10,000 users. Artur and I are part of the support team, but we also each lead cross-functional teams focused on community and user content. So this talk is about making a change. We wanted to create better content for our users and make that a part of company culture. Along the way, we did find some winning principles that we want to share. We think it might help others who are looking to make a change in their organization. So first of all, you may be wondering, what is an avant-garde guinea pig? So avant-garde, I mean, being at the forefront, experimenting with new concepts and approaches, and embracing our status as weirdos, which we did have to do from time to time. In guinea pigs, I mean testing and experimentation. We tested things out on ourselves first. We were our own guinea pigs. And I also like that guinea pigs are curious and social animals, which will also tie into what we talk about. So I think it will be more clear by the end of the talk. I'll let Artur now take you to the secrets of our dark past.
Yeah, so basically 2 years ago, so in 2018, we started from scratch, and that's why we started, basically. So we had no framework available for docs. Which means, people were building documentation on the tool that they found. So no data about the user usage. So what do they look at? What documentation are they interested in? And also what documentation is produced, actually. So overall, not really any coordination about what is documentation for. So documentation was pretty good quality, but without coordination, you had sometimes big gaps in terms of documentation somewhere in the product, and of course no writers, or at least no official writers that would write documentation or technical documentation for the software. So back then it looked a bit like this, so very abstract to people, especially in our company. So it might be your case too. So documentation is a pretty abstract thing when you are a software developer or maybe a coordinator of a software company. In the sense that it's supposed to be part of the product, but why would a team take care of this? I mean, developers can take care of this and build like the documentation with the feature that they are developing. So when we started to bring up this idea of user documentation, people were not really getting it, and they were actually waiting for us to prove that it would work out, or that it would actually be useful for the software. We wanted to create more user content, and maybe using a certain strategy that would be community building. But Jessica will tell more about that.
Yeah, so a few of us saw that there could be something better, and we had kind of some ideas about what we wanted to do, so we decided to take on the challenge. So at the time, the documentation was technically belonging to our development team, but they didn't really have the time or energy that they, or the motivation as much as support did. And so the people on the support team were the ones really feeling the need to improve. And so that's where it began for us. So we started a user content team, which Artur will tell you more about. And we identified some opportunities, planned some projects and experiments to improve the docs, built up a community. And at first that was mostly internally, of course, but it does spread. And we were loud. We shared our stories as we made progress. We let people know. Anytime we had some small success, we let people know about it. Of course, we did also experience plenty of fails. There were lots of mistakes or learning opportunities along the way, and we will tell you about those as well.
So we chose to present four steps we took. So those are chronological steps, so they happen one after another. In order to build like this, user content project that now has a lot of traction in our company. So as first step, we created like a user content team, so like some kind of official structure that would take care of the user content. Second, we launched a docs platform that was supported by Sphinx, so the package from Python, and I will tell more about it. Created a support hub, so basically a page where you find everything. And for building an online community. Of course, among all of those, we did also a lot of failures that didn't work out, but we thought, that would be cool to share the things that worked. and yeah, we would love to have like this type of talk 2 years ago when we started up. So we can start with the first project that was to build a content team. So at first we didn't even build a team, so we thought like it was obvious that people would come together to build docs, but this is not as obvious as it seems. So we thought we would engage some people in the company to be part of our team. So what you see on the right side is what we call a circle in Holacracy. So we are a company that is working on Holacracy. And in this circle, you see many small circles that are roles. So one basic thing that we did is to separate in roles what could be, what should be done to spread and to scale a user content. So a real documentation framework, let's say, for people to be able to easily add documentation, get feedback on it, and being happy to contribute. And so we started with this experimentation, and soon we had people that would genuinely join the team. So that's a success. In Holacracy, you can't impose anything on people, so they just like your project or not. And yeah, relatively it was a success because we shared the bigger picture and maybe also the steps we would take. So community building was there. Loud Squeaks, when we succeed to had like to create that in the Glassfrog software that you see here, and that we had like some people that were happy to be part of it. So we're a 50 people company, So as soon as you have 5 people or like just 3 people joining it, it's already a big success. It's like 10%. So yeah, that was the first project, and that helped us to go to the second step. That was the project number 2, and that was to actually launch this docs platform we are talking about. So this is a platform based on Sphinx. So I guess everybody's aware of this, and this is how we learn about Write the Docs community, by the way, and that we participated in last year Write the Docs Prague conference. And that was an experiment at start because we were just 2 contributors to this platform. It was a pretty ugly website, and we just bet that by launching this website with user support folks, users would use it. That was pretty bold because nobody would know that upfront. And so we asked just for a domain name, so that was very light. And as you might know, Sphinx is just open source and free, and so you can build a website out of nothing. And with a bit of CSS, it just looks nice. And that's what we launched, and we discovered by getting a bit of data that actually it was used, and it was maybe more used than the rest of our documentation, just because we made sure that people could access it, that it was crawled by Google and those type of simple things. And by creating this platform, we also created, the entire process to change the documentation, contribute to the documentation. And so we had more and more writers coming to the team, and saying like, yeah, that's nice. I write something and then people can access it, and I can know also when people access it and then give feedback on docs that we are publishing. So super happy. Once again, we did some loud squeaks and tell everybody that it was a huge success. Well, back in the days, it was, it was not a huge success, but still it was pretty important. And that made us, legitimate to actually reach out to other people in the company. So the small community is starting to build up.
We did make a few mistakes that we can mention here that we learned from. So we did have a lot of content plans to start with that came just kind of out of our head. And we were investing lots of time on making our plans that didn't necessarily have any data backing them up. But since we were also gathering data at the same time, we were able to kind of revisit those plans, and we realized, like, okay, you don't have to start with a grand plan at all. You really just need to start with a starting point and then revisit it as you get more data.
Yeah, that's
so
very
that was
true.
one good thing.
That's very true, because we started with like just user support folks that were just upset that they would answer like one question 4 times a day, you know, or maybe 4 times a week. And so they were just building like totally unstructured content, but that, you know, would be crawled nicely by Google and give answers to users. And so it was a totally counterintuitive approach when you think that a website should be well structured. Well, eventually it got well structured, but at the beginning, what was successful was just content, basically pure content.
Yeah. Well, and also another problem that we noticed early on was that with just a few contributors, it seemed pretty easy to start just throwing content at our site and just publishing as much as we could. But it did start to get a bit chaotic. People were not really sure what kind of formats to follow. Things were getting put in weird places. So we had to create some guidelines and some structure about how we were going to collaborate on creating this. And so that eased things quite a bit and made it a lot easier for the users to understand, I think. So after we launched this kind of it was kind of a secondary documentation, actually, since there was still the documentation from R&D, and plus lots and lots of other resources that we had scattered around various places from our company's online properties. We decided that we need some kind of central place for all of our support resources, which I think is pretty standard these days, but we didn't have one. So we did start with experimentation, of course. We had already created this site with Sphinx that we just showed you. And we thought, okay, well, we can use this template and we can maybe create it as a landing page with some kind of federated search for all our resources. But this one really did not work out so well. We had trouble convincing IT what we were doing and how to help us. So it was kind of stalling. And it wasn't even really clear to us if we had all of the features that we needed to make this a useful website with Sphinx without some sort of, dedicated web developer, which we didn't have resources for. So this is where community building kind of saved us. We had discussed a lot of this project with marketing because they were in charge of the website that was hosting a lot of our other resources. So when we were discussing it with them, they started to understand our needs and our users' needs a lot better. And ultimately, when they started to plan their project to revamp the website for the entire company, this was a great opportunity for us to create our own support site then. And so that's what we did. It was very important to keep squeaking loudly because it was a long process. It took us maybe from the time that we started trying to make this happen until the actual launch, it was maybe a year and a half. So we did have to keep bringing it back up to support, to marketing, to IT, just to keep it fresh so people remember that we need this, our users need this, it's important. So some mistakes that we made was, for one thing, pushing on the wrong team. We were really sure that we had a great solution and we really just needed IT to do this one thing for us. And that wasn't really working out. So once we realized that there were other ways to get the solution to the problem, we were more open. It didn't have to be a Sphinx site that we controlled. It could be a different kind of site. And so in the end, we have now a WordPress site that matches with what marketing was working on, but it serves the purpose that we needed to. So the last project that we wanted to share is our online community. So we knew that we wanted to engage users with this kind of community. And we had really clear goals about what we wanted. It was more than just about documentation and support. So support obviously is a big part of having a community like this. You are able to scale your support effectively with reusable content, but you're also able to increase user engagement and loyalty because you have this more social aspect. It's more personal and much more interactive. And you also give an easy platform to get user feedback about your products and your docs, actually. So you're able to build better products with this wider platform for user feedback. So we started by experimenting, of course. We had already tried out Google Groups as a kind of user forum. And we had some success with that, but we could see that we needed to upgrade to a hosted platform. We've chosen one from Insighted. Feel free to ask about it if you're looking into options. And so this upgrade was really huge for us. We have many more features. It looks more professional. There's a lot more data tracking available, and there are more integrations that we can work with. So for community building, it seems this would be central to this project. And it actually was very important for us to start community building internally in our company. So your community really is your colleagues in the beginning. You need their help, and you need them to buy into what you're doing. So we recruited a team from several different departments. So we have people from marketing, from customer success, from support, and from development helping us. And so these people are not only just well suited to the tasks that need to be done, but also they are representatives in those departments and influencers, and that's a huge help. So as far as Loud Squeaks goes, we blasted our user base from every channel that we could think of, letting them know about this new platform. It's still in kind of the early stages of community building. We've only been live for about a year and a half, and it still takes time and effort to engage the users, but it's getting there. It's working. So some mistakes to avoid. We first off, we're starting mainly with people in support when we started this project, and we were trying to promote things among our colleagues and users, but we really didn't have any experience in that as a support team. So once we got marketing involved, it went a lot more smoothly. They knew what they were doing. And then another thing is we were not really loud enough in the beginning. We were kind of afraid of scaring people off or looking like it was a marketing thing. But once we realized that we have really clear benefits to the user here, we just need to highlight what those benefits are and keep exposing them to it. So the repeated exposure really does work if you're doing it gradually. So those were our major projects, and they were all a bit of experiments. So what was the result of all this? Where are we now?
Yeah, well, you remember the first picture, so it was mainly pretty abstract. So what is user content in itself? Now it's pretty much going well in this perspective. So of course we have framework, we have data, we have coordination and writers. We talked about it during the talk. But more than that is that it's becoming trendy, cooler than hipster animals on coffee cups, to write docs. So it's a bit the feeling that we have now is that the framework in place and all this link with the community around makes people actually interact because they get recognition for what they do. So if you have they can just write an article or maybe a documentation on a feature, and they are they have confidence that this will end up on the web and that will be reachable easily and effectively. And that's a big thing, and it's the same thing with the online community. Like a big event was when developers connected directly with users, without the user support involved on the community. So being cooler and being easy to contribute and easy to have effective contribution made us actually having some contribution from all over the company. So we started with 2 people writing, articles because of support on this how-to website, and now we finished with maybe 30 people that are using this framework to make documentation in a better way and coordinated. So our next challenges are, of course, to keep on growing the community on our user base, but also the maturity of the community. So this is what Jessica is talking about. So when you have a community where people are, asking and answering questions, it's very good. It's the first stage, but what if they can also share part of their work and get feedback on that and maybe do some co-working together? But one of the things that we really want to also take on is the e-learning frontier. So learning in itself, so training materials are user content, of course, and this is what we want to take on to the next level by using an e-learning platform, and we'll see in 1 year what does this brings us. So yeah, that's us now. So some takeaways to summarize what we learned very fast.
All right, we learned to experiment fearlessly. So it means be curious, take on new technology and approaches, experiment and adjust. We were always experimenting, and a lot of things failed, but that's all right. So the other thing is to be resilient. So embrace your failures as learning exercises. See any opposition from your colleagues as a challenge to be more convincing, and take your learnings and try again. You may end up with a really ugly Elmo cake, but try again and maybe you get a nicer one next time, or maybe you get a nice Cookie Monster. So building the community, of course, was very important. So be passionate here. You need to know your mission and what you really want from what you're doing, and people will be interested and be ready to listen. Be persistent. So you need to really engage your colleagues and users, and this takes a lot of work to do. You have to keep exposing them to what you're doing and to what you're trying to do. So a lot of people won't volunteer to help you at first. You have to really build the case of what's in it for them. What are the benefits when you ask them for contribution? But over time, when that's become clear, then what we found was people really wanted to contribute. And finally, we learned to share the story by squeaking very loudly. So you want to be loud when you find something that's working. Tell everyone, tell your company, tell your users. When you celebrate milestones along the way, so we were celebrating that we got more users this week, or that we got our first feedback, or any little thing was enough for us to tell people about it and say, hey, look, we have something that's going really well. Be open also. So as we were sharing these successes and these stories, we were maybe trying to pitch it to someone in particular that we needed help from. But then along the way, you find some unexpected allies, somebody who kind of volunteers and asks you questions and turns out to be a big help to you in the end.
We were always extremely surprised by who would contribute to our vision. And it's usually not the people you are expecting. So on our community, we have what we call super users. So it's users that are, answering questions without us asking them to do this. And those people were absolutely not the people that were the most motivated people when we launched the platform, and that will tell us that the community is great. So yeah, we have the tendency to think that just speak as widely as possible, and maybe your allies will show up in an unexpected way. But also it's a lot of recognition for people that are working with you. Et voilà. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we do encourage you to be avant-garde guinea pigs, be bold, try everything. If you have any questions about what we talked about, you can feel free to reach out to us on the Write the Docs Slack. We are down here in the corner, Jessica, VE, or Archer. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.
I want to start by getting into this concept of like squeaks and loud squeaks. And starting with, you mentioned that your company is relatively small, but in large organizations, you might have to squeak very loud and very frequently. So do you have any advice on not losing your voice and getting exhausted by having to constantly squeak?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, in our context, it was, it's a rather small company, so 50 people. So we have like this type of yammer, it depends what you're using as a tooling, but yeah, it's kind of a internal social network. And this greatly helped us to see who was interested and then to reach out directly, actually. So with emailing. But yeah, not too much. So there was some kind of intuitive equilibrium between. So we have a third colleague of ours that wanted to always share like what we do, and we wanted to share only maybe once a month and not being like too present. But in terms of loud squeaks. It was mostly that. So at the beginning, it's to me, it's really about community building, So quick, small wins. So like the more people you have, and the more squeaks will be very loud. So it's not a problem if the first loud squeaks that you make, are just like gathering like maybe one or two people. It's just that the following one you will do, will reach out like to many other people. So, and soon it will build up, and soon, then you have your own platform where you do your loud squeaks. So now our community platform is where we actually scream. and yeah, this is how we see it. But yeah, that's a good question. A very big company. I don't know. You could organize events also, certain topics and. Yeah, that would interest like part of the people. And
Vlada just said in the chat, the larger the company, the louder the squeak. And I mean, I've never worked for a big company, but I can imagine that that's probably how it is. And you said something in that answer that I want to get into, which is, I mean, can you squeak too much or too often? Like, what is the balance between okay, at least I run into this problem where I'm like, oh, I really want to promote the work I do. I want my colleagues to be aware of the things that I do. But I also get annoyed when people talk about their work, like every single thing they do. I'm just like, no one cares. Stop. So I want to find the balance. Help me.
Yeah, exactly. And you would be overwhelmed. So I already have been part of some Slack channels, where actually you have so much information, like each day you connect, and then it's just too much. So as I told you, it was. I don't have specific answers to it, but once a month is I like it this way, depending on the amount of content that you create, etc. But just the big numbers, and to be honest, it's a communication. It's very simple, like just a few lines, some jokes in it, and just making people understand that the impact that you have actually on the users community. And so I would say about the frequency, so we had this problem actually on our community. The frequency was too high, so people were not reading anymore, like what we were publishing and all that. But I guess many others have the same problem. But at least for the building of the community itself, it helps to have like 1 month update, or maybe every 2 months, with like some big stuff, to share.
Mm-hmm.
And some big wins, that you have, and some numbers that are really growing, and that helps to make people like excited about it. So it's all about that, it's just a game to to make them, to seduce them,
Yeah, I mean, it's really, people are talking in the chat right now, like it's a really hard balance to find. And I want to add something about what I said earlier also, is that probably, even if you think you're squeaking a lot, you're probably not squeaking enough about your own work. That's what I've learned. And if other people are going to squeak, then you might as well squeak too, because no one's going to advocate for you. You got to advocate for yourself. Definitely. That's what I'm adding to this.
Yeah, no, definitely. So most of the time we are also shy to share, some information about what we do, but it interests like many people, and they actually like it if it's not too frequent, of course. But it's most of the time it's the opposite. So you do not share enough. So that's what we learn. So.
Yeah, there's also a point about lone writers in the chat. I mean, for sure, literally no one else knows what you're doing. You got to tell them. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, otherwise it makes no sense to them. So and it's a bit too bad, because you lose them actually on the way to build the community. And so it's like a communication plan, but like with your own colleagues. So what I like is that each time we talk about community building, of course we did that with our users, but at the start, we were alone in our stuff, so we had to learn how to mobilize the community in our own company first. And that helped us like a lot,
That's brilliant, yeah. No, that's really like internal, and having it move external, amazing. Speaking of community, we got a few questions about it. So do you consider tools like Slack or Teams as like community platforms? And if so, like what did you choose? Like, I don't know, how do you choose your platforms that your communities live on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Teams, so we are experimenting Teams to build a community. So the major problem that you have is that if you want to reach out to people that do not have Teams on their computer, it's suddenly difficult. Yes. So Slack is really the appropriate tool to make the community speed up. And our platform that we're using is Insided. So it's a company that is providing a platform, but not just a platform. It's also like the entire ideology and service about like how do you build a community of users. They're very good at it, and so it's a specific platform. We chose it because to us building a community was not just about the tool. Definitely, it was about like having this success journey to really build up like some kind of community that makes sense with people that knows what is a community, so that have experience in doing that. And it turned out also Insided is like a company that is growing pretty fast. So their software is like evolving like very nicely through the community itself as well. And so community of communities,
Yeah, that's probably well like that. Yes.
Yeah, and so this is the tool we used, but it's a paid tool, of course, and you could think about something else as well. Yeah,
and then for our last question of this session, I want to combine what we were talking about at the beginning, squeaks and community. How do you find the right way to squeak, if that makes sense? Like, how do you decide what's the best way to get your, announcements and messages across?
You mean in the phrasing or in the channel?
No, I mean literally in the delivery. Does it depend on the platform? Is it always or if you're internally squeaking, should you be squeaking up? I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along, but yeah.
No, your squeaks. This is public talk, So it's like, of course, it might be because it's politics. So it's like a media, So and that's all right. This is rules of the game, As soon as you understand it, it's okay. So the way you talk to the outside should always be something that you thought about. So it seems very simple, but actually there is a lot of things that are in there, and you share only the information that you think will have an impact. Even if sometimes you could share a failure or like, something that you try, that you learn something about it. But to us, communication was always this way, and then it has to reach as much people as you can. So for us, it was like Yammer, but if you have like a platform somewhere you can share like much more, I mean, you should do it. If people can interact with it. So it's also to feel temperature. So if you launch something about what you've done to build up the community, so to make like this enthusiasm, growing. You need also to feel the temperature. So just launching that, for example, on a blog, sometimes could be not enough because people are not directly reacting to it or whatever. And I guess this is why we have a social tool for that. I mean, Facebook and all of that. But yeah, because they can react easily or more in a more complex way, and this helps a lot.
Absolutely. So many good tips you just shared with us the past 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Arthur. If I've learned anything, it's that you need to be your own publicist. Like, really?
Yeah, exactly. No, your own media. So don't let others do your media at your own place. Because otherwise, I mean, they will just tell what they want to tell about you. But,
I love it. That is excellent. How can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you something else or learn more?
Yeah, I can drop my email. I could drop my email. Do you want me to do that in the chat or something?
If you feel comfortable, then I say go for it.
I'm totally comfortable with that.
All right, then that is the end of this session. We have a short, 5-6 minute break, and then the next talk will be at 15:30 Central European time. And I'll see you all after.
Bye.
Bye, Arthur.